you didn't mention a liver disease.
Liver disease. Yeah, no, I didn't mention. There you go. I like that. No, I didn't mention liver disease because liver disease is there, but it's definitely not necessarily one of the common causes we see. I mean, liver disease is common as far as it's there. It's just not one of the common causes of death. You know, you see it, you might be aware of it, you may know somebody that has it, and that may be because of the frequency of hepatitis C in the population. It might be those patients who drink too much alcohol and develop cirrhosis, but usually liver disease is lower on the list.
Okay.
So out of that top 10, you know I can't talk about all of those in detail, so I'm just going to pinpoint down, you know, the 3 or 4 main ones that I think is important to us as men and as us as Black men. First, I want to talk about heart disease. Okay. Question to you guys. Can anybody tell me what heart disease is in their own words? Do you have an idea of what, when somebody says heart disease, you're thinking what?
Weakening all the arteries, I guess. You got all that gook and shit, you know, the gook in your arteries, it hardens them and weakens them and, you know, makes you susceptible to having one of them joints pop.
Makes it hard for the blood to circulate.
Exactly. And heart disease, cerebral vascular disease, where we're talking about the brain, and peripheral vascular disease all kind of share some of the same common themes. A lot of times what happens is you can get narrow nose arteries and decreased blood flow to any one of those things. Decrease of blood flow to the heart can put you at risk for heart attack. Okay, complete blood flow blockage to the heart can cause a heart attack. All right. Same thing with the brain. You know, you lose blood flow to the brain, you're going to have a stroke. Okay, and there's many different ways that can happen. Or you lose blood flow to your extremities, like in patients who have diabetes for a long period of time. You can lose blood flow to your toes, your feet, your legs, and things of that nature. So that's kind of what briefly heart disease is. They're all kind of similar, the same. So if you have a blockage of your blood vessel in your heart and it completely blocks, you have a heart attack. If it's narrow and you're exercising and you develop chest pain, basically what's happening is that you're exercising so much that there's decreased blood flow because your heart vessel is not open enough. And because of that, your heart's saying, hey, I need more blood flow. You're not giving enough blood flow, so you're going to cause symptoms. Okay.
What about irregular heartbeats?
Irregular heartbeats itself? Yeah, so irregular heartbeats in itself can happen. There's many different causes of irregular heartbeats. Mm-hmm. I think there's sometimes, as a physician, we get worried when patients have irregular heartbeats without necessarily a reason or a rationale. So a lot of times we'll start screening patients for heart disease because a mild heart attack, unknown or a silent heart attack, can lead to irregular heartbeats. Mm-hmm. Okay, or some other forms of heart disease, like an enlarged heart, can cause irregular heartbeats to occur, and it's good to kind of figure out which type of heartbeat it is.
You say unknown heart attack?
Say that again?
Did you say an unknown heart attack?
Unknown heart attack, yeah. I call them kind of like a silent heart attack. So a patient, for example, you may have had some chest pain you blew off the other day as being heartburn. You didn't do anything about it. You know, you just kind of tolerated, you stayed at home, you toughed it out, symptoms eventually went away, and you somewhat felt better. But then you came in the hospital 3 or 4 days later, feeling short of breath, not being able to climb up the steps. And then when they do that workup, they realize that, oh, you have decreased heart function. Then they go back and start looking at your heart and realize that, oh, you had a heart attack before in the past. So sometimes,
wow.
Yeah, so sometimes that can happen, is, you know, so it's not necessarily silent. It's just that in some cases, patients have ignored that symptom.
Yeah, because when I had my chest pain scare, I went to the hospital and, you know, the lady told me, like, they could take, when they draw your blood, they can tell if you got any kind of heart distress going on.
Correct.
You know?
Correct. They can. If you have heart injury, they can kind of detect that. If you don't have any active injury at that time, but you have some risk factors for heart disease, then they could probably send you to a cardiologist and kind of, you know, work you up from that standpoint to see what your risk factors are. You know,
yeah, but then the next morning, boy, they kept me overnight, right? Because you say heart, you know, chest pain, you go in, well, I got to keep you overnight. I've had some of the best sleep ever had in my life, actually. And they were like, we got to do a stress test. And taking the stress test. Yep. That shit almost gave me a heart attack.
Yeah.
I ain't never had to run like that. I had to run like that when I played football. You know what I'm saying?
So real, just to bring us back a little bit, we have two Morehouse brothers, man, and I'm not mentioning their names for privacy issues, but recently that we all know, or not, we all may not know, but at least 2 or 3 out on this call know, who just had triple bypass surgery. And I know, Tom, you may know this, but what is the causes for having to have triple bypass?
Well, usually for triple bypass, what ends up happening is that usually the amount of arteries that are blocked in the heart are usually either too many to put a stent in to open them up, and therefore patients aren't necessarily deemed a candidate for angioplasty. Angioplasty is where they put a catheter and a balloon into the heart and go down to that narrowed artery and open it up again. Or if it's a closed artery that clotted off, they can pass a wire through there and balloon it open again and allow blood to flow to that section of the heart again. And sometimes they put a little stent in there. So depending on the certain criteria that you use, if you have more than 1 or 2 blood vessels or 2 different big blood vessels where you have disease in your heart, a lot of times they'll recommend a patient to have a bypass rather than doing the stenting.
Okay.
Hey Tom, on this subject of heart disease, it's interesting because I guess it's not a secret that has plagued our community, right, on a whole.
Right.
So we know that. What would be the suggested offset to that? Like, what could someone do to either prevent heart disease, or if they are in some kind of moderate stage of heart disease, try to correct or reverse it?
Okay. All right. Perfect. Yeah. Actually, that's right on point. So there's several risk factors that we can change, and there's several risk factors that we cannot change. So I tend not to worry about the stuff that we cannot change because we can't change it. But the stuff that we can change, put all our efforts in those arenas and try to at least knock off several of those risk factors. You may not be able to knock off all of them, but if you can knock off 7 out of 8, that's good. 6 out of 8, good. So what are some of those risk factors that cannot be changed? Your age, right? We all get old. Your age, family history. If you have a family history of heart disease, your mother, your father had a heart attack, age 40 and under, age 50 and under. That's a risk factor right there. You should be somebody I would send to the cardiologist right away saying, hey, you need to get screened early. If you already had a heart attack or a stroke, or you have a history of peripheral artery disease, you're at a high risk. And then just us being men, we have a higher risk more so than females. Okay. Now, what can we change, right? So there are certain things we can change and improve on. High blood pressure, right? That's the risk factor we can change to some degree. All right. There's some people that can look like fit and they still have high blood pressure. There's some genetic variations there, right?
Yeah.
That part, you just can't fit that. That's going to be a gene thing. High cholesterol, hyperlipidemia, for the most part, that we can control unless you have the genetic version where you're just genetically predetermined to have high cholesterol and things of that nature. And you're going to be somebody who's going to be put on medications. But again, as I go through these risk factors, remind you, even though you have high blood pressure, that's not the big deal. The big deal is if you have high blood pressure, is it controlled? Right? So keep that in mind. It's not a big deal if you have high cholesterol, if it's controlled, right? Smoking, diabetes, being overweight, there you go, you're on it. Those people don't exercise enough or excessive alcohol use, so those are some risk factors that we can work on. All right.
Tom,
Yes, indeed.
excessive. That's kind of subjective. What's deemed excessive?
Y'all stop pointing at me, man. Hey, wait, look here. I'm on ginger ale today, brother.
Well, there you go. But there's other people that feel like that, having a glass of wine every night, is good for you, so, and then there's our observation that we see with a lot of our patients who are alcoholics. A lot of those patients really don't have heart disease. We really don't see it. They die of other issues though. So I don't advise that.
It's not heart disease.
Right.
Wow.
It's not heart disease.
I did not know alcohol cures heart disease. Is that what you just said, Doc?
No, I didn't say that.
No,
So,
it is a joke.
the occasional one glass of wine or the occasional 22 beers, right?
Right. Well, I don't know about the 22. Two beers. You know, two beers.
Oh, it's 2, not 22.
Yeah. Most physicians,
Okay.
we kind of characterize alcohol as far as grams of alcohol. So we usually kind of say one shot is equal to 4 ounces of wine, which is equal to 1 8-ounce beer, which is that's all pretty much has about the same amount of alcohol in it. So that's just alcohol. But
now I'm good. I had that 2 and 22 confused all this time, bro. I appreciate that.
Good. So look.